Barry.
Here. Okay, we have a quorum. Now I will turn it over to you, Darcy.
All right. Good morning, Commissioners, members of the public. My name is Darcy Anderson. I am the Williams County Tax Director. And before you, we have the 2023 Williams County Assessment Report. The assessment function in North Dakota is governed by state statute. For property described as residential or commercial, we set a true and full value of its market value, or the price a property would bring if offered for sale in the open market for a reasonable length of time and purchased by a willing buyer from a willing seller, both parties being prudent and having reasonable knowledge of the property and neither being under undue pressure. We are historians as assessors, and we measure the market based off of the sales which have occurred prior to the assessment date. We do not create the value or predict what it will do, but rather reflect the patterns set by real estate market. The sales that occurred between January 1st and December 31st of 2022 are used to establish the 2023 values. Information on the sales of real estate is of paramount importance to our office in a market-based property tax system. The sales that occur within our time period each year are closely scrutinized by our office. Evidence suggesting anything other than an arm's-length transaction will discard a sale from the database for statistical comparisons. Our office is charged with setting estimated market values for tax purposes at actual market value. The relationship between sales prices to estimated market value is called the sales ratio. North Dakota state statute requires for all classes of property a median ratio of 90 to 100%. We make every effort to ensure that each class of property is in that median as consistently as possible. This way, we ensure an equitable distribution of the property tax burden for all Williams County taxpayers. State statute also requires that our office send a notice of increase to all property owners whose property value increased 10% and $3,000 over last year's assessment. There were 850 notices sent this year compared with 1,100 for last year. This number does not include notices sent to the city of Williston, as the city of Williston has a population of over 5,000 people. We do a report just on them by themselves. So we'll start with our residential sales study. Sales prices increased a little over last year, with the average price being $308,466, up from $293,000. There were 147 usable residential sales this year. These 2022 sales are what the 2023 assessments are based upon, and we have assembled them into a ratio study in your appendix. Residential properties in Williams County sold on average 10% higher than they were valued. The overall sales ratio for residential properties was 91.1, as we are required by the State Board of Equalization to be between 90 and 100% of market. No overall increase in valuation was needed. However, individual areas and styles of construction were adjusted as indicated by their sales. We analyzed sales by location, age, style, and story to determine where those changes were needed. Residential true and full value increased $21,908,520, and almost $16 million in valuation was added just from new construction. Manufactured home taxation is somewhat different than real property. Manufactured homes are assessed on the permit system when the individual owns the home but not the land. They are assessed in December of each year based on the previous year's market, and then tax statements are computed on the former year's mill levy and mailed in December to the respective owners. The major difference between manufactured homes and real property is manufactured homes pay taxes in January for the coming year, while real property pays in December for the prior year. There are 828 homes on permit in the county. For our commercial sales study, the state tax department requires our study to include 30 sales at least to create a market. There were 35 commercial sales that occurred in 2022. These sales have also been assembled into your appendix. The overall commercial ratio is 92.6%. While that ratio does fall within the 10% tolerance, we analyzed properties by style of construction and made adjustments where necessary. Commercial true and full value increased $6,020,760. Over $6.7 million of new construction was added to the commercial valuation of the county. We continued our partnership with Thomas Y. Pickett and Company to assess industrial sites and saltwater disposals within the county. We also utilized the income approach when assessing our apartment buildings in Tioga City, Missouri Ridge, and Tyrone Townships. We send out questionnaires regarding income and expenses to each apartment owner. However, only one single owner returned the information to our office. Therefore, we had to turn to advertised rates and directly surveying managers for our information. And our average apartment rates are there below. We also reviewed vacant land in each jurisdiction. Our vacant land does not include agricultural land, but is usually located within a subdivision or a sublot. In 2022, there were 19 vacant lot sales, and the ratio was 93.75. As we move on to agricultural land, it is not valued in the same manner as residential and commercial properties. It is not assessed at market value, but is valued by the Department of Agribusiness and Applied Economics at NDSU based on a computer model. By law becomes the true and full value. The model incorporates production, capitalization rate, and cost of production index. All ag land in Williams County is digitized by the GIS system, and it is valued by soil productivity with adjustments made for fenced pasture, saline, alkali, and inundated land. Those numbers can be found in the soil chart. That was not true. There are three major components to the formula: capitalization rate, ag land production, and the cost of production index from ND Ag loans over the last 12 years. So you can see in the chart we did have a slight increase in our ag land rates. We had a 3% increase in cropland values and no change to non-crop values. So on to our recommendations. I recommend that residential property be left as a class at the level presented. Residential property is assessed at 93.96% of market and would need an increase of 6.43% to reach the statutory level of 100%. The State Board of Equalization allows a 10% tolerance level. I would also recommend that commercial property be left as a class at the level presented. Commercial property is assessed at 96.69% of market and would only need an increase of 3.42 to reach the statutory level of 100. The State Board of Equalization also allows a 10% increase, or 10% tolerance in commercial values. I would also recommend that agricultural property be left at the level presented. Agricultural property is assessed at 95.87% of market and would only need an increase of 4.31 to reach statutory level of 100%. So just some information for you as we move on to the pretty charts. These charts do not include any of the numbers for the city of Williston. Those numbers are available in a separate report for any of your review. We also have a map on the very front of your report that is the assessment districts within our office. We do not have any local assessors. All assessments are handled within our office. We also utilize a CAMA program to help with our assessments. These promote better equity, reduce a lot of human error and opinion, and we utilize their cost manual and temper with our local sales. We also utilize the Sidwell Farms program to help us assess our soils values. We are able to see exactly where those soils lie and are able to adjust them precisely on our map. All right, so the first chart we have for you is the breakout of the classes of property within Williams County. It is heavily onto the commercial skew, with 52.6%, residential at 29%, ag land at 16.5%. The next chart is a bar chart showing the history of the real property true and full values for Williams County. Overall, we changed 3.21% increase. Our next page is a breakout of the privileged exemptions. These are properties that are defined by North Dakota Century Code as being able to have some adjustment to their assessment, be it 100% or a set value. We will be approving these later today, but these are the breakout of them as they sit in our office. And while we are here to talk about the values and not necessarily the taxes, I do always take a moment to talk about how the property tax system is built. It is 3 elements of budget, valuation, and tax. The amount of tax to be collected is calculated by dividing the budget by the taxable valuation. And I have a tax bill estimate based off of last year's value or last year's mill levy in the city of Tioga, and which taxing entities share what portion of that tax bill. The next page is the history of the mill levy. As you can see, as our values have increased, the mill levies have decreased, staying the same over last year. The rest of your report is the sales ratios, the soils valuations for your information. Are there any questions from the board?
Anybody got any questions? Nope, I think we can move on.
All right.
So now we're going to go up to the local board of equalization for unorganized townships.
Yes, as the county commission, you guys sit as the local board of equalization for all the unorganized townships, the townships without their own boards. So if there are any comments from the audience for Cow Creek Township, Golden Valley Township, Hoffland Township, Nesson Valley Township, New Home Township, or Wheelock City unorganized, now would be the time to come up.
Okay, we will open the public hearing for the unorganized townships. Is there any comments from the public on the Cow Creek Township, Golden Valley Township, Hoffland Township, Nesson Valley, New Home Unorganized Township, and Wheelock City Unorganized? Can you come up and go to the mic? If you'd state your name before you ask a question, please.
Cheryl Crane. I was told I could come a little bit late because there was preliminary stuff. Have you hit the Stony Creek Township? No. Oh.
No, we have not.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, perfect. For a second time, any public comment on the unorganized townships previously stated? Third and final time, any comments on the unorganized townships? That'll close the public hearing.
My office did not receive any formal protests for any of the unorganized townships or city. So we can move on.
Okay, so now we're gonna go to the County Board of Equalization. Do you have any comments before we open the public hearing, Darcy?
No, we can go through the formal ones afterwards.
Okay, we will open the public hearing for the County Board of Equalization. So any comments from the public on the county board, for the County Board of Equalization?
Yes, Ms. Crane knows.
This is a really nice facility. Cheryl Crane. I am been in Williston for 3 years and lived in apartments, and we just bought a home in the Stony Creek division in February 2023. So I also taught here. I'm a licensed teacher in Minnesota and licensed in North Dakota, but currently homeschooling.
Can I just get your property number?
Oh, sure.
It's just on.
This is actually the taxes for
Yeah,
this year.
that's fine. This has it on it.
Do you want this?
No, I just need this number right here.
Okay. So the reason that I'm here is when I bought the property and looked at the taxes, it said in 2020, and I have some paper, a copy of each of these. It said it was valued in 2021 at $346,000, 2022 $362,000. And I thought, that doesn't seem right, because the first appraiser that I got from the previous owner was in 2020, November 2021, it was appraised at $340,000. And I just thought, something must be wrong. So I called the office and they said, yeah, go ahead and, bring this forward, because that needs to be changed. And the current appraisal, when I bought the home, actually lowered $10,000 to $332,000. So I just, and then I got a letter, when we moved here, saying that it was going to be raised to $400,000. I'm like, wait a minute. I was going to contact them to say that $362,000 was wrong, and so, then I got a second letter that said $390,000, and I didn't have time to go to the first meeting. There's just been a lot of stress and moving. So this is my first time at a meeting like this, so excuse me if I'm not doing it the right way. So you guys gave me another letter that said $390,000, and so I of course I have the documents for the appraisal, but I didn't have time to take pictures or, and maybe you can educate me on what I'm supposed to do in regards to showing you that, the work and damage that's been done to the place. It was painted, which was great before we moved in, but there's no gutters, and so there's been damage. We're working on the basement, we haven't put the gutters up yet, and I don't know if you want me to give you all this. Is that normal? Do people talk about?
Yeah, if you have details, we'd like to hear them.
Okay, so the windows were foamed in, the north windows were spray foamed in, so I can't open them. White spray foam, so I'll have to do something about that. I know he was trying to make it more energy efficient, that's why he did that. I ran the corn stove when we moved in February 2023, and it's very inefficient. And, even with the corn stove going, it was around $200, and we can't. That's way too high for running heat in there with a corn stove. The front door is broken. I've had to try to fix that. It's just broken. Needs to be replaced. He had some holes in the property where he was he had made like a pool or something, or a fire pit area that ended up being covered in sewer. It was too close to the sewer lines, so I need to figure out, you know, I'm gonna go to friends of ours, the neighbors who are, you know, they're gonna check into that and see what I need to do, but we brought in 17 tons of dirt to fill that. We've been working hard. We have probably worked over 100 hours, my kids and husband and I, just landscaping and, you know, trying to move stuff around, and it still looks like a war zone. But, I mean, we love the property. We love it. I just don't want to pay taxes on this for what we're putting into it. You know, I mean, we love this place. It just, we're putting a lot of sweat equity into that. And I even hate, I don't know what that means, because like if I say this, then in 3 years, are you going to raise it again? You know, so, okay, yeah, so there's a sewage smell on the north side. I don't know if that's because of what's been going on. Unfinished deck. The driveway is a complete muck mess. You can barely get up there in a four-wheel drive vehicle. And then we're paying, my neighbor came to me and said, would you give me $1,000? And I really like him. He's not doing anything wrong, but we all have to pitch in $1,000 because you can barely get up our road. And I know that somebody said that that's not the county's responsibility, but it says on here that the county charged $630 per person. So why would,
That's general roads, not necessarily your specific one.
right, but we're still getting charged
Yeah.
630
Well, you still drive on
other county roads. Okay, so we don't count for that, which is fine, whatever, but still, we have to, I'm just saying that's extra. You know, now we have to pay, you know, we're paying taxes and now we're paying this, okay? And so that's trips to the dump, of course. There's a couple spots where the roof is leaking. And it's not major, but you can see the hole spots, you know, in the ceiling. And so that's probably gonna have to get fixed. That's it. So did you guys want these appraisal for 2021?
Do you need them?
2023?
Appraisals are different than what our office, I would take them. I cannot say that I would use them to get those values directly. But if we have information on there that we are missing, then I would be very happy to look through them.
So, so it's got the other houses in the area or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, comparable value.
Right, and we have to take all of the, is this a pre or a post? All of the new houses in Stony Creek, we have to, we compare them to, not necessarily your neighbors. I mean, your neighbors might be, but
Okay, so what are you saying then? I mean, what does this look like for me? What's my next step, or who do I need to contact to figure out how to get this back down to, like I said, in 2022, it was appraised at 362. And now you're jumping it $40,000 to 390?
yeah, so based just on sales, all of Stony Creek, all of the new houses in Stony Creek, based on their sales, we were 13% low. So we had to raise them just to meet the sales requirement that we needed. So to be in that 90 to 100%, we had to raise it 13%. That's
So
what
the state
requires.
Yeah, the state requires our taxes to fall between the 90 and 100%, and that has to do with sales. So I think what Darcy's trying to tell you is that everybody in that whole area went up 13%. I don't know the math off the top of my head, but that's going to be fairly close to
Probably.
the number that you're up.
Okay.
Yeah.
So who do you guys go to try to figure this out? Like, this needs to change.
So I would recommend getting an inspection done by Leah. She is the assessor out in that area. That way we can see the problems ourselves. we can make adjustments then, and we will bring them before the board as at a later date, whenever we get the inspection. It won't be, I mean, you could do it today, but the meeting will be over today. But we can always make adjustments after
Okay.
today, so.
So any other suggestions? Like, who do, I mean, do you guys go to the state to say this is not right? These people are being taxed too much here in Williams County.
No, because we do the analysis. So when we are looking at the sales, and we don't care, I don't want to say we don't care about our taxes because we're all property owners and we all care about our taxes. But the tax portion is not where we are looking today. So it really would make no difference to me, and I don't mean this to be any harsh or at all. But if you paid $1,000 or $2,000 in taxes, that's not my office. My office is what it is valued at. What would it sell for?
I see.
So that would be,
So you can't even look at this right now and say, yeah, we'll look at this, because I really can't afford another inspection. I've been putting so much money
Right.
out.
our inspections are free. We would just be
Oh.
correcting our yeah, we don't need
Okay.
a licensed appraiser. Our office would come
Oh, okay.
out
Absolutely.
and do an inspection to make sure that our property record card is reflecting
Okay.
what is actually there.
Okay, so would they take into effect the damage that has been done that I have fixed?
So your assessment right now has to be how the property was as of February 1st. So
So
if,
if I have pictures and things like that?
right,
Okay.
pictures when you first moved in, that would be something to show that, yes, you have
Okay.
fixed this. But
Darcy, I don't mean to interrupt, but is this something that maybe this afternoon you guys could
Okay.
get together and deal with
Yes,
rather than taking our
absolutely.
time here?
Yep.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Appreciate you coming.
Okay.
So you'll just get with Darcy's office. She'll line you up with somebody. They will be able to come out and inspect
Okay.
again, and then we can move this down the road.
Okay, but this was the right place to go.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yep, you're in the right spot.
all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Al Hickle. First, I'm going to start off with 323rd Avenue East in Ray, North Dakota. True and full value, $109,310. I was selling this property. I had it appraised. Well, I didn't. The people who wanted to buy it did. $82,000. It's kind of a big difference. Then the bank got involved. When the bank got done, I would have had to spend another $18,000 or more just to fix. I didn't want to do that either. I know Williams County, from what I've been told by the city of Ray, they're the ones that appraised the land in Ray. I think it's being appraised a little overboard. Probably because the city of Ray continues to buy property and then redo it and sell it, competing with private enterprise and anybody else that's got property. They've done it once again by buying the property on the north side of Ray and the subdivision there. They already bought the property in the northwest corner and selling that property. There's an ad in the Tioga paper here just 2 weeks ago again for $11,000 to $13,000 minimum bid. Which brings me to my 15 West Street property. It was $29,270 in 21, and 22 it's dropped down to $15,000. I can't even sell it for $15,000. The city of Ray is selling bigger lots for less money. Then there's my property at 8 Winther Street. It went up. It's at $35,990. I acquired this property from a friend who had it for sale. Nobody would even bid on it or give him any kind of anything in Ray. It's right across from what was the gas and all. So when the southeast wind blows, it was a trash lot. It catches all the trash from across the street. Nobody wanted it. But yet again, it's appraised at this kind of value. Nobody's gonna pay that in Ray. If you see Ray grow, the only thing that grows in Ray is certain people's pocketbooks. Now that I did them 3 properties, we'll go to my father's property. $156.97, Section 5, the southwest quarter. My father put in for a zone change with the city of Ray. Once again, Tom Wheeler shows up and, oh, land swap, land swap. Nothing but a liar. He don't want no land swap, he just wants to delay things. Then COVID hit. I couldn't get nothing done at the city of Ray for my father. Finally, the auditor gave me the money, the check back from my father, after they turned planning and zoning from the city of Ray over to the county. Well, according to what I read from the rules, the city of Ray was supposed to present that to the county, and they did no such thing.
But this is tax equalization, Hal?
This is taxes.
No, that's not what you're talking about right now. If you have a question about tax equalization, let's get to it,
Well,
but I
there
don't
you
really
go.
follow where
Where's
we're
the
at.
equalization? Where is my family equal on taxes on anything?
But what I'm trying to say is you need to tell us what the value is and what you want changed, not what happened with the city of Ray.
Well, I find it right here. Let's do this. Privileged exemptions. Since my father was the only World War II veteran left in Ray, why don't we exempt his property? I don't know, I'm paying taxes on property that can't do nothing with because of fascism.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you guys for thank you 3 for last time for allowing a zone change on the land that I own with family. Thank you.
Okay, is there anybody else that wishes to talk about tax equalization? Go ahead and state your name.
Christina Fesco. My husband and I, we live out in Muddy Valley subdivision. We got, obviously, the same with everybody else in Stony Creek. We got the 13% increase on our value. We can't even sell our house. We can't landscape on our house. We can't do improvements on our house because we thought we were going to be at the end stage to this stupid property line issue, but we're back to the beginning stage of it again. The last I heard from Ed was in April, where now the state's attorney has to get involved to get one of the original people that were out there to sign off on it because they refused to sign off. So, and then after that, it's got to go all the way back to the beginning again because we've got new homeowners out there that knew nothing about it. So people don't want to buy, they're not going to spend over $400,000 to buy my house when I can't landscape because I have to bring up grade. Well, to bring up grade, I have to get a permit for that. We can't get a permit because we don't know where our property lines sit. We can't do any improvements on our house because, again, we have to get a permit. We can't do that because we don't know where our property lines sit. This is an issue that I brought to you guys 2 years ago that we were going to freeze. You guys had told us we were freezing values on the houses on Muddy Valley until this issue got fixed. It's not getting fixed because people are dragging their feet. The last that we heard was Karen Pruitt had tried to send a letter to these homeowners telling them to get the ball rolling, and now the state's attorney's involved telling these homeowners to get the ball rolling. It's just a cluster out there. Nobody can sell anything. We had one house that sold for cash for over $1 million, and I'm guessing that's what our subdivision is getting based off of, which he figured out real quick his house wasn't worth that, but they didn't do an appraisal before they bought it, so.
I know there's been some issues in the Muddy Valley area, and I do recall there's been several conversations about it. Is that an option, Darcy, to do something with freezing the values back to where, because we know there is some things that need to be done out there, and some of it is they don't know where their property lines are.
I mean, we will follow your directive on this. So, yeah. I know we have adjusted the land way down and the structures. We have given them a discount on them.
A discount, or has it gone up the 13%?
Yeah, it would have gone up the 13%, but we did put a 2 years ago, we put 25% on all the structures. So a decrease of 25% on all the structures, which has held, and then 50% on the land.
But even with this 13%, I can guarantee you nobody's gonna buy my house for that. Because again, we can't put landscaping in, because I have to get a permit, because I have to do the grade, and I can't do that because we don't know where our property lines are. Well, we tentatively know where they are, but
Anybody else
Can I
have any
ask a
comment?
question?
Yes, please do.
Ms. Fesco, what's holding you up from doing your landscaping?
because I have to so you see how on the pictures, our house we sit on a hill and everything drains down. We don't know where our property lines are because on the one side of our house, all the property lines are shifting. Well, Rindas are refusing to sign, the one that's up on the hill above us, the blue house. So we don't know we can't do anything. I'm not gonna do landscaping that's gonna end up on their property.
And whose responsibility is that?
Well, 49th Latitude was the one, originally Wenstrom screwed it up. 49th Latitude bought it and was supposed to be fixing it. And I literally email Ed every month asking, where are we sitting at on this? Where are we sitting at on this? Oh, same spot, same spot.
I'm just trying to help clarify in my mind where the county's at fault here, I guess. I mean, and don't get me wrong, as you said, this has been an issue for years. And I think it all started with the original family that developed that property. But
It all
we
started
need
with-
to, I don't want to see us continue to kick the can down the road by giving you guys a discount and nothing gets changed.
Well, we can't do anything on our property because I can't.
No, I understand that, but I think I don't know if there's association with
There
out
isn't a
there.
homeowners association out there.
Somewhere along the line, I think somebody within the development, the families need to take some action to find a solution. I'm trying to
We've been
help, but,
told by county commissioners that it's not, Kara's out of it now.
I'm sorry?
We've been told by county commissioners that Kara's out of it. Since she sold all of her lots, she's not responsible for it anymore.
You've been told by county commissioners? Oh, I don't know who that would be, but it doesn't matter. I mean, I'm just trying to find a solution here rather than continuing to keep kicking the can down the road and we're
Is
not
there
getting
a
anywhere.
way to force them to sign where the lot lines are so we don't have to keep doing this? Because that would solve everybody's problems.
What would be why would somebody not want to have it squared away? I mean, why-
Because he's losing property and he feels
Well,
that
but
somebody should
not-
compensate him for it.
But I mean, it really, nobody will be losing property. You will just be your property will be where it's supposed to be. I mean, you're not really, because if the lines move and you got 3 feet over here, but if they move, what you wind up short here, you gain over on this side. So I mean, your square is still gonna be square, right?
No, because it's in between two county roads. And so when everything moved over, all of them on the south side of the subdivision lost land.
Mr. Chairman, could we ask for some input from Karen? Because Karen was brought up, obviously, having been involved with this. But Karen, would you weigh in?
Absolutely. I think any help is definitely needed.
All right, back in December, I believe, Ed reached out to me and said that he was having a problem because it sounds like it's really boiling down to the Fescos and the Rindas and then their mortgage companies, their bankers, really. And so Ed has been trying to get an appraisal or get some sort of a document signed by the Rindas banker agreeing to the corrected plat really. And so he kind of stalled last year in terms of like having contact with him. And so he reached out to me and asked me to try and intervene. And so I talked to Mike Renda and he said it was okay to reach out to his banker. And so I ended up doing that. Well, now the banker who is a first-class mortgage, actually, they sold the mortgage to a company in New Jersey called United. Anyways, I reached out to them. I got a hold of the mortgage company, and so they had agreed to sign this affidavit of lien beneficiary. They actually basically agreed to sign off on the corrected plat. However, Ed needs this particular document signed, and so to tell you the truth, for the last several months, Ed has been going back and forth, kind of, with the Renda's banker to get this thing signed, and it's a little bit maddening for me because I see an email from the banker, United, the Renda's banker, United, and they'll send an email to Ed, and then Ed, like weeks down the road, will send another email. So it just seems like it's like really slow moving. And so what they're really waiting for is for Renda's banker to sign off on this lien certificate or this beneficiary certificate, and then it's supposed to go back to the Fesco's banker to, I don't know if they're going to need another appraisal or if they're going to sign off on it at that time, but it is closer. It's just that, like the wheels are turning very slow because people are not responding to emails very quickly. They're just not, and so Ed is just really waiting for the Renda's banker to sign off on this beneficiary certificate and send it back to him, really. That's what we're waiting for at this point, really. So once it gets done, then it'll go to the Fesco's to, I guess reapprove or sign off on it, really. So that's where we're at right now. So
That's the last two of all those properties out there?
that is my understanding from Ed, yes. So it's really,
So two signatures and it will be solved, or?
well, not according to Christina. She says that there's new owners out there. So, I don't know
Well,
what
what the previous owner would have signed off on it already, I would assume, right?
yeah, I don't,
Never had to sign anything yet. They were waiting for Renda's to get everything finalized. And our bank, everything was finalized with our bank 2 years ago.
yeah, and like I said, Ed has been going back and forth, with the Renda's banker, but
Karen, would it be, gentlemen, worthwhile to move this along and have you send a letter to Ed and to ask him to come to our next commission meeting and explain to us what's going on here so that we can get some directive to put some feet to the fire here and move this along?
sure, yeah, I have no problem with doing that.
Is there any, one further question, I apologize. Is there a means legally to apply pressure to get a desired outcome?
There isn't sort of like a means to apply mandatory pressure to make them do something, but that's why, I sent the letter to sort of lend the counties and the state's attorney's office, thing to kind of move things along, and things did things were moving along pretty quickly, really. We got contact from First Class Mortgage, we got contact from, Ed resumed contact with the company in New Jersey called United, and so, but then now, it's been, the emails going back and forth, they're just slow moving. They're not being as, I guess from my perspective, they're not being as responsive to each other as they should be, really. And it's like, to tell you the truth, part of me just wants to reach out to one of them and say, come on, just sign that document and just mail it. But it's like, this is Ed's thing, and then I'm not gonna, I don't think that I or the county should get involved unless Ed reaches out to me and says, here, I need some help, which is what he did. And I sort of kind of lit a fire, through the letter that I sent, and now it feels like the fire is kind of
Well,
waned a little bit. But I will reach out to Ed and said, please come to the next Board of County Commissioners meeting and give him an update.
that would be good, but do we maybe want to send a letter to both of them and say, hey, we got to get this done? This is ridiculous. This has been going on for years, and
And it sounds
it
like
is
to me,
ridiculous.
Christina, you and your husband are caught in the middle.
Yep.
You've done everything I think that you've been asked to do.
Yep, everything was finalized with our bank on 9/28 of 21.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
So I would like to see
Ed, like every other month saying, hey, where are we at on this? Where are we?
Yeah, I have no problem.
Karen, I think we should send a certified letter to both of them and ask them to be in attendance at our next meeting.
When you say both of them, both of who?
Ed,
The
Ed,
mortgage company that won't sign the piece of paper, and Ed,
Well, the mortgage company won't be able to be here because, like I said, they're out in New Jersey. So-
they got a phone. They
Remote.
can call
Okay,
in.
yeah,
We need to push this and get it done.
I would agree. I would agree, but like I said,
If you send the letter and they don't show up, it's not your fault. If you just send it and say, hey, we would like you here, and then we can move on with life, because this has gone on way, way too long.
I would agree.
And I know we've gotten off base, so now we have to go back to tax equalization.
Well, and to tell you the truth,
Sorry, folks.
Ed for a while was waiting on his attorney to draft this document for the Renda's banker to sign, and it took it took forever. And I even offered to Ed that I would draft this document for him, really, but then he never responded. I mean, I want to help because the Fesco's. I mean, it's been going on forever and a day, and it just part of it is because there's a fire lit and then it sort of wanes. A little fire lit, so maybe this will be another fire that kind of lights things.
Let's make it a bigger fire so it can't be put out.
All right,
Okay.
yes, so I'll just sign it you want to sign the letter? You want me to sign it, or? I have no problem signing it, what do you want?
I'd say you go ahead and sign it.
Okay, I will.
Okay, we're
Okay,
good. Thank you, Karen.
Yep.
Now, back to the original conversation was the tax equalization. Does it,
Should 13%.
Well, so would it be reasonable to say that now, once we've got this little fire started again, can we just put a freeze on the properties out there till we actually get something squared away? Because, I mean, and another thing I'd like to mention, is like, Ed's working at getting this fixed, maybe not quite as fast as everybody says, but it's not really his I mean, he,
it was the prior surveyor.
correct. So, I mean, don't want to
But
throw
still,
him too far under the
I
bus.
think,
right?
I think Ed assured us, and probably everybody else, that he would take care of it because he took over the business. And obviously, that has not happened. Now, to answer your question, I don't know, it seems to me that the Fesco's have a unique situation, and I think we should look at something for them. Whether or not everybody else should be involved out there and within that subdivision, I don't know that they have the situation that the Fesco's do. Just my opinion.
Well, that's true. Yeah, you're right. That's true enough. So I would, that was just a thought. I mean, but we got to do something here.
And we can stew on it for a while because we don't need to, we'll hear everybody and then make decisions, so.
okay, thank you. Anybody else? And Karen's coming back. She's got something else.
No, I don't. I just want to say, I'm not just, Ed is a busy guy, and, I think he's trying to do what he can. It just like, things are just moving slow. So I don't want you to just, it's like Barry said, I'm not trying to throw Ed under the bus or anything like that. I'm just saying that fires get lit and then they sort of wane and then, so. just-
Ed's a big boy. He can get thrown under the bus. It's fine.
Yeah.
We like him. We like him, but I'm not afraid to push him under the bus a little bit.
Well, you can, but I don't want to, so.
Well, the
he's-
other thing is,
he's
when-
working.
when he said that he would help take care of it, and we're 3 years into this and nothing's been done, I'm sorry. There's gotta be, somebody needs to, light a fire.
We'll take the heat.
Okay.
Okay, does anybody else have anything?
Bruce DeWeese. I live at 901 4th Avenue West, and much like everybody else, got that nice increase. So I understand your metrics and everything like that. I get it. But at what point is it true and full? Because my new value is $440,000. I wish it was, but that lot to the left, my left, that's an old dilapidated house that somebody's trying to flip and fix. It's never mowed. It's an eyesore. I understand that improvements were done to my house, but that was the previous year, and it was assessed that year for $43,000 less. I get it, but it seems like a pretty egregious amount to increase for the location, like true value. There's no way I could sell that for $440,000. And if I tried to, someone's gonna look at the property tax, they're gonna be like, are you kidding me? For this? There's a firehouse 2 blocks up. Not the best location. Those are my concerns. Like, how do we get the true value?
When was the last time somebody was in that property and had it assessed?
I don't know if they went in 22, but it was assessed in 2022 for $398 and change.
If I remember right, we did get an invitation to go inside that one, I believe.
So it would make sense if he asked for an inspection, they could come out and look at it and,
Absolutely.
correct? Yeah.
I don't know that, anything much has changed in the last year. I mean, it would be under a year ago that we went in.
So, I mean, if he's saying that they can't sell the house for that dollar amount, how can we assess it at that dollar amount? I mean, if we're based on new home value sales in the area, is that correct? There's no adjustment for.
So this would be
years.
compared with other mid-average one-story, so other houses that were built between 1950 and 1999. So it's not looking at Harvest Hills, but it's not looking at West Broadway either.
But a true and fair, accurate value would take into account the location of your home.
Right, and we do have varying rates of land throughout the,
I get, yeah, some
city,
people are at 13%, I'm at 10.7. I get that small variation, but just what I could feasibly sell this for on the open market, like in your earlier slides, with 2 non-pressured buyers would not be $440,000. That's my concern.
Kind of on a side note, I think you'd be surprised.
Yeah.
Because my daughter just bought a house and she just sold a house and we were shocked on both of the numbers. It was unbelievable. I mean, and that's just me watching it go on. I totally just shook my head. It was crazy how much people are paying for houses here. But can we get an inspection again and go through it and at least make sure that we've,
yeah, and we can do a direct sales comp report too, so.
does that help?
Yeah, very much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, appreciate it coming in. Do we have anyone else that wants to talk to the County Board of Equalization?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, good morning. My name is Trevor Hunter. I'm an attorney with Crowley Fleck here in town representing JMAC Energy Park. I believe our protest is on the formal list today, but I thought I'd say a few words now and I'll stick around. If there's further questions or comments, I'll be here for that part too. So these properties, there's 7 of them. This is really the old Halliburton campus east of town. They were sold to JMAC Energy Park in 2022 in 2 batches. The first was 3 of the parcels and the second was 4 of the parcels. So the street addresses, it's 411 Halliburton Drive, 420 Halliburton Drive, what we were calling sublot 17, 420 22nd Avenue East, 438 22nd Avenue East, 435 22nd Avenue East, and 121 24th Avenue Northeast. Those are the street addresses. So as with everyone asking for equalization, we believe the current assessments exceed the true and full, or in other words, the market value for these properties. So JMAC purchased these properties in 2022. Those sales were the most recent sale of the property predating your assessment date of February 1st, 2023. The total purchase price for the 7 parcels was $6.2 million. The aggregate assessed value based on 2023 for those 7 parcels is $25.2 million. So well in excess, almost 4 times, exceeding 4 times the purchase price for these properties. So on May 19th, 2022, the 3 parcels were purchased for $4.2 million. That would be 411 Halliburton Drive, 420 Halliburton Drive, and sublot 17. And the parties, being Halliburton and JMAC Energy, allocated the purchase price of $4.2 million between those 3 properties. And it was allocated in a written amendment to their purchase agreement. I provided a copy of that amendment to the assessor's office. And in that amendment, the parties agreed as follows for purchase price. It's 411 Halliburton Drive, $2 million, 420 Halliburton Drive, $2.175 million, and sublot 17, $20,000. Second part of this transaction closed September 6th of 2022, and those properties would be the four that were left: 420 22nd Avenue, 435 22nd Avenue, 438 22nd Avenue, and 102 124th. That was for a total of $2 million. These are the most recent sales of these properties, and these sales are the best evidence of full and true. North Dakota has adopted the International Association of Assessing Officers definitions, and the guidebook defines market value as follows: the most probable price expressed in terms of money that a property would bring if exposed for sale in the open market in an arm's length transaction between a willing seller and a willing buyer, both of whom are knowledgeable concerning all the uses to which it is adapted and for which it's capable of being used. So that's willing seller, willing buyer. That's what we call arm's length or market value. This was a market sale. This was subjected to the open market. It was an arm's length transaction. Part of what we provided to the assessor's office is a letter from the broker on this deal, which was Aries Energy Real Estate Solutions. Mike Elliott acted as the broker. Their office provided a letter that outlined some of their efforts to advertise the property. We also provided some of their marketing materials. So in that letter, Aries says that they first marketed the properties in June of 2020. All right, and then between August of 2020 and November of 2021, there was 3 interested parties that never closed. JMAC wasn't one of those parties that entered into these contracts, but there was no closing in that year and a half period. And Aries says it wasn't until the price dropped to $6.4 million that they entered into a contract with JMAC, who eventually purchased for $6.2 million. But that's the price point at which there finally was an interested party that entered into a contract that eventually closed. So this was arm's length. It was subjected to the open market. Broker used all the typical advertising methods and things that brokers do, and it was on the market for quite some time before it found that price point of eventually closing at 6.2, advertised at 6.4. One thing I do want to point out, there was a lot of discussion today about sales ratio, and I understand that discussion, but one thing I think is useful is and Darcy's office provided me with the snapshot, I'm calling it, the 35 commercial properties that are listed on that sales ratio and how you identify the median. Our properties aren't on there, which is fine, it's just a snapshot. But if you were to include these JMAC properties on there, we aren't well above 100%. We are nearing 1,000% if you are to apply what the purchase price was compared to what the assessed value is. So, for example, the sales ratio on 411 Halberton Drive is 171.54%, and they only increase from there. 420 Halberton Drive would be 367%, sublot 17, 167%, and what we're asking for on the balance of the 4 properties, 689% on 420 22nd Avenue, 438 22nd Avenue, 542% on 435 22nd Avenue, and 876% on 121 24th Avenue. That's why we're asking for equalization. These are well outside of both what the sales price was, which is the best evidence of market value, which is what this board is to do, is set it full and true, and even using the sales ratios that are how the county valued all commercial properties, well in excess of 100% and in the hundreds of percent on several of those properties. There was also appraisals done as part of the transaction. There was financing involved. As to the second one, they performed appraisals on all these properties. We provided copies of those appraisals as part of our materials to the assessor's office, and they support the purchase price. I think the total value or the total appraised value there is $6.3 million, and again, the purchase price was $6.2 million. There was some comments at the City Board of Equalization that this appraisal was done as part of financing, therefore it's not evidence of market value. That's just not true. I mean, there's a couple of ways to think of that. Appraisals are to determine market value, whether that's for a lender, whether that's for a buyer that's not using a lender, it doesn't matter. The whole purpose of the appraisal is to determine market value. And secondly, I would argue sometimes a financing appraisal can be even a better evidence of value because banks have certain loan to value ratios and they are pretty keen on what's the value of this property compared to what we're loaning into. So these appraisals are good evidence of market, but again, the best evidence, according to state law, North Dakota's guidebook, is the sales price. And the sales price of these properties was 6.2 million. And we've talked about the individual values made up in that 6.2. So again, I'll stick around for the formal part if there's questions or wants any further comments from me, but JMAC is asking for the values to be reduced and equalized as set forth in the letter that we sent to the assessor's office. If
Can I
questions
ask
now,
you
we're happy to answer.
Quick question. On your columns here that, on the requested amounts that you have listed, are those the amounts that JMAC purchased that property for? Do you know?
Yes.
So
Yes.
you're telling me that we had an assessed total on, let's say I'm just gonna use the old Halliburton man camp, for instance, which the city does not allow any more man camps within the city limits. We had an assessed total of $2.988710 million, almost $3 million. And they purchased that for $340,000?
Yes, and that property, I mean, let me qualify that a little bit. So my first comment is that property actually had an increase. It was the one property that had a notice of increase in 2023, 18%. Is the man camp property that hasn't been used. It certainly hasn't been used as a man camp since 2015 or whatever it's been since the city. But to your point, Commissioner Montgomery, the total of those four, if you're looking at, I think we're looking at the same sheet, my letter, those four prices there, starting at 420, 22nd, the aggregate total of those four is the aggregate total that JMAC purchased those properties for. Yes.
So what you're saying is then requesting then is just because that's what they pay for it, do you feel that it should be assessed at?
Absolutely.
And then they turn around and sell it in a year or two? Because obviously I'm assuming they bought this for an investment. They didn't buy it to use the man camp. So they turn around and sell that man camp for $2 million in a year or two. Then what?
Then you will have a new sales price for you to base your market value on, presumably in 2024. But sales price is the best evidence of market.
Yeah, and
Market
Trevor,
value is true and full.
quick question. You talk about equitable. So I buy a building, it's the Eagle building, I pay a price. How do you justify the massive difference in the price of per square foot? Because there's no comparing, you got way more square footage. How do you make that equitable for me? Why would it be equitable for me, for you to pay, or to get assessed at $27 a square foot?
I'm not an appraiser, but I
Yep.
don't know that comparing, just looking at square footage is really a one-to-one comparison. But what I would say is the purpose of equalization is to determine market value for property. So I'm proffering to you that this is the evidence of market value as to this property. Another property owner, Eagle Building, for example, or someone else who feels that, I understand the point you're making, but I think that would be up to them to present evidence of market. And here we have a sales price that is far below the assessed value.
So according to Century Code, Darcy, there's dates involved in all this stuff, correct? So if the sale was after a certain date, then does that make that not accessible for evaluation
Correct.
till the following year?
Correct. So like, when Miss Crane came up and talked, her property was sold in February, or she purchased her property in February. Well, I can't use her sale for this assessment because it will be used for next year. Same, we only looked at what happened in 2022.
So does this one fall in 2022, this sale?
It does, however, it was a multi-parcel sale. All those properties were listed on 2 deeds. There was no breakout of the values or their payments for each one when we were provided it. So we rejected all those sales. They are not usable in our analysis because we couldn't identify what each one was worth.
So I do have a comment there, if I'm permitted, Mr. Chairman. So Commissioner Anderson, to your point, those were in 2022. The Century Code says sales prior to February 1st, 2023. Both these sales were in 2022, so they are good evidence of sales. And on the issue of the deeds, take my opinion for what you will. I'm a practicing attorney in this town. I practice property law. It is not local practice when there's multiple properties that might be part of a transaction to have 7 deeds, for example, one property identified on each deed. Secondly, I'm aware of no requirement under state law that would actually require that to be the case. I understand the point Darcy's making, which is the consideration identified on each of the 2 deeds is the aggregate total for the properties identified in the deed. That's the point she's making. I understand that. My point is, there's no requirement under state law that the consideration for each property identified on a deed needs to be separately identified. And secondly, there's certainly no requirement that each property needs to be in its own deed. And the final point I'll make is we did provide a copy of that amendment to the purchase agreement between Halliburton and JMAC, which does have that breakout that the parties agreed to of that purchase price, where it's actually allocated between the properties, at least for the 3.
Does anybody have any other questions, comments? Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, Darcy, do we want to close the public hearing and then go into the ones that are formally presented? Is that what we want to do, or do we just stay open?
No, we have all my stuff back here. We will keep it open for those formal hearings. And I know that,
Tell you what, we've been sitting here a long time.
Yeah.
Can we take a 10-minute break
absolutely.
and maybe get up and walk around just a touch? All right, we will take a 10-minute break, be back here at 11:17.
That's what I wanted to see. Yeah, no, this is.
order. And we are into the formal ones now. You do have the letter that you got this morning on your list, right, Darcy?
You know, I didn't, but I know about it.
You know about it, so
Yes,
we'll
it
be
would
taking
be-
care of it.
Yes, and I know that Kim King from Halliburton is expecting a phone call for numbers 2 and 3, so if we would like to get that, and then the other ones were just brought ahead, so.
So do we need to,
Yeah, we
Call?
need to call her. She should be expecting.
okay.
Yeah, I'm not, that's what I don't know how this works. That's Lindsay. Oh, it's ringing. Yeah.
Kim speaking.
Hello?
Yes, hello.
We gotta get your volume turned up just a little bit so we can hear you.
Hello?
Oh, there we go. Now you're loud. I like it. Okay, this is the,
Is this Williams County?
this is Williams County, the Board of Equalization.
I'm having a hard time hearing you.
I'm not sure there's anything else I can do.
Okay, it's just going in and out, I suppose, because sometimes I can hear you clear and sometimes it's not so clear.
Okay, well, hopefully you'll be able to hear. I'm gonna turn it over to Darcy because she's gonna start.
Okay.
The two properties are owned by Energy Property Partners, LLC. They are, you have your packet in front of you. Those are the two horizontal ones.
I do.
36 South Avenue in Willis, or S Avenue, sorry, and 826 48th Avenue West. So the big Halliburton complex on the west side of town, and then they have a shop kind of down here by the railroad.
Okay, if you wanna go ahead on the phone,
Okay, sure. Should I start with one in particular or it doesn't matter?
whichever one you wish to start with, just let us know which one it is.
Okay, so I'm looking at first the property on 48th Avenue. This is our hub of Williston operations. So we were assessed at $126 a square foot, which came to a value of a little bit over $18 million. On this one, we actually had a third-party appraisal firm do an appraisal for us, and that's pretty much what we are using in addition to a couple of sales that we've had. I guess in a sense it appears that we are kind of making the market as far as these large industrial sites because we have sold a few. But going back to the appraisal, that appraised value came in at $11.5 million, which is about $84 a square foot, and so that is our opinion of value. Sorry, let me see. Okay, so the first comp sale that we're looking at is 805 48th Avenue, which is a neighboring site. This actually used to be, well, our site was owned by the seller of this facility, and the design is, nearly identical. They were both constructed at about the same time, and they were owned by that prior owner for about 5 years. That site is about 115,000 square feet. It has industrial, office space, and pretty much all of the same amenities that our site has. It's just that our site is a little bit larger. That site sold for $7 million in April 2021, which is $60, almost $61 a square foot. They were asking for a little bit more than that, but that's what the site eventually sold for. And so we really feel that that is probably the best comp that we have because of the location, because of the fact It was constructed by the same company. The design and everything was being utilized, in the same manner. And so, again, we just feel like that's a great comp. But it does not appear that the county gave any kind of weight to it. I guess particularly because there's not many comps to look at, but these industrial sites, it's not many of them to begin with. And then to get multiple to sell in a year, it's just almost impossible, it seems. But again, so on the next slide, the sale that we're looking at is the 420 Halliburton Drive site. This used to be our main facility out there. It's over 128,000 square feet, 15 buildings, similar amenities that you would find in an all-field service warehouse with the cranes and all that kind of stuff. These buildings are aged from 1965 to 2013, and it's comparable land, 25 acres. This site we sold for $4.2 million, which is approximately $32 a square foot. And so at the end of the packet, I have just a few important pages from the appraisal. But, we're pretty much hanging our hat on that appraisal, but we also wanted to just kind of illustrate that these sites are not selling for as much as I think most people would likely imagine. And so the market is the market. And what a prospective buyer is going to pay for a site, unfortunately, they're not paying, what we've seen in the past or what it costs to build these facilities. But again, that's just kind of the state of the market at this point. So on this one, our opening of value is at $11.5 million.
Okay, does anybody have any questions on that first site?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just was asking the commission if anybody had questions on the first site. If not, I don't see any questions, so you might as well go on to the second one.
Okay, and then on the second site, this is our Barrett site. It is a shop facility. With this one, it's a 14,000 square foot warehouse with some office space. It was constructed in 1980. It's about an acre on a little more than an acre of land. I was able to find a couple of warehouses that I thought were comparable. The first one is on 2619 University Avenue in Williston. It's 8,600 square foot shop and office space. It was constructed in 1978. Slightly larger on the land, but that property sold for $650,000, which is about $75 a square foot. The next comp, 3401 First Avenue. The building consists of about 12,000 square feet, same industrial shop and office space. It's a little bit newer, was constructed in 2011, and also slightly smaller on the land. But that property sold for approximately $88 a square foot. Then I have two buildings on one site, a total of 12,000 square feet, made up of shop and office space, originally built in 1978, a little bit more than an acre of land, and it sold for $75 a square foot. In our property, we noticed last year, the value had increased from, I believe, about $89 a square foot to this year, $117. So roughly $90 to $117 a square foot. And when I talked to Christy, she mentioned that the reason for that was because overall, when they looked at all of the commercial sales, it indicated that they were assessing lower than what these properties were selling for. And so, they enter that information into the database. It takes a look at, the different building components and such that each site has. And for ours, it just happened to increase it 30%. But when I look at that, when I look at the sales are indicating between 75 and 88 for a warehouse comparable to ours. And so it seems like with that increase, it bumped us outside, even more outside of what a site like ours would sell for. And so for that one, we just want to have, you guys to consider moving that value back to the $89 a square foot, because it seems like that is what the market is showing is more indicative of what our property would sell for if it were on the market. So our opinion of value for this one is, I believe, $1,232,352.
Okay, anybody got any questions? All right, thank you.
All right, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
The other formal protest that we received beforehand is from the Walmart Real Estate Business Trust and the Property Tax Department on the Walmart. They believe that the value includes the value of the tenant and not the value of the structure. And they did provide a little Marshall and Swift analysis with some comps that take place across the state. And they are requesting a valuation change from $23,868,560 down to $16,790,000. Oh, right. I forgot about that. The current value is actually $21,162,680. I forgot that was last year's value, and they filled this out before they knew what this year's value was going to be. And then you will have to excuse me, I forgot to, I gave away my copy of the one that we received. Thank you. This is, we got this email from Craig Hoagland. He lives at 805 2nd Avenue East. He does not agree with the valuation. We were at his property before the city equalization. We did make some adjustments to it, but he still feels that it should not be assessed at the $438,000 that we have it. He would like it at $365,000. And that concludes the formal protests that we have received.
Okay, does anybody have any questions or comments about the formal protests? I'm going to assume we close the public hearing then. If there aren't any other questions, are we good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, public hearing has been closed.
All right. So do we want to start back with the public, the actions and discussion on people who came? Okay. First we have Cheryl Crane. Get it pulled up here in just a second. She seemed amicable to a inspection, so if there's anything else we can discuss, otherwise I would like a motion in that.
Anybody have any questions on it, or, I mean, it seems like an inspection is gonna be the way to go with that.
Sure, you'd like a motion, just assuming to keep it as is and pending a.
Yeah.
Conditionally, based on inspection? Okay. I could make that motion. I'd move to keep it as is and pending the future inspection.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moving second, any discussion? Roll call.
Corey,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Bo,
Yes.
and Steve.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Next was Hal. I don't know that.
I don't know if there was a
mean,
question asked.
There really wasn't.
I guess I don't know what he never really came out and
Right,
said
I mean,
what.
the first one he talked about, he doesn't even own anymore, so.
Yeah, I guess I don't
I don't-
know if there's any action we need to take because that was my question and that's when he thanked us and left. So I don't know if there's,
I just wanted to go through.
yep, no, that's
Yep.
right, but unless I'm off base, guys, do you see?
There really wasn't anything.
Okay,
So, next was Christina Fesco in Muddy Valley Sub.
I think I'd like your idea, Barry.
was that to freeze it?
Just on her property, though. I think she's the one that's been, or she made the request.
Yeah, freeze it on hers until,
Well, until we got this new campfire started, so we'll see where that leads, I guess.
She mentioned that we'd froze it 2 years ago.
So
I mean, if that,
2 years ago, we were told to put a decrease on it. And so we have kept that, but we haven't ever adjust any market changes still happened. So, they still have a 25% off on their house and 50% off on their land. But because of the market changes, those still kept it going.
Part of the reason I like Barry's idea, is there a motion?
No, this is.
Discussing, right, okay. Part of the reason I like that idea is it puts a little pressure on us to keep this ball moving, even though it's not 100% our problem. It's no one person's problem, but we're the only entity that can help move this thing forward. So by freezing their value, it incents us to do something and to continue to do something. And I would say keep freezing it every year until we get this thing done. And that's why I feel so strongly on that. So I think that's a great idea.
Okay, one
yeah,
one thing I fear about until this gets done is my office is very rarely told when things get done. So I hate to put like a 1 year, I mean,
We do this every year, though, so she
Right.
can, if she comes back and protests again,
Right,
this freeze would just be in. and
like return it to 2022's
Thank you,
value is
yes.
what you were asking.
Yes, exactly.
And then we just keep,
We
kicking-
look at it every
keep
year
the
if she
horse.
keeps coming, right? And then otherwise it gets adjusted.
yeah.
So my concern is, and my question to you as a board is, we put that OBSO on the structures and the land across this whole subdivision. Is this something you want to proceed further with the whole subdivision, or is it just Christina Fesco's? Do I go back and remove those OBSOs from those other structures in the subdivision? Those are all my questions as the assessor in that area. I'm very concerned about what happens with the rest of the subdivision. It's not just Christina, it's the whole block of land.
I think we do the whole block of land. I understand what you're saying, Steve, but this also puts even more pressure on us to get this thing taken care of. And I'm good with that because I think we continue with the entire block of land because it's a mess. It's not, like you said, it's not our fault. It's not really any one person's fault. They're trying to get it fixed. I say we do it and just get it done.
But, and maybe I'm just, worrying about it too much, but so it sounds like we would, I'm in agreement. I think it's a good idea, but the glass half empty look here is if it takes a year for this to get, and it does get handled, so then everything's squared away. Well, are they gonna go from their 22 assessment to something in 24 that we don't even know what it's gonna be yet, and then they'll have a 40% increase, and they're gonna go, what the, and it's like, well, yeah,
We'll have
so,
to
I
notice
mean,
it on that because and I think we'd have to step it up, right? We don't-
I think, yeah, right.
So that was why I was under the impression that they would continue to receive the yearly increases so that when this was removed after this was fixed, it would only be that first initial difference, not a difference of 4 to 5 years. I can pretty much guarantee you that if we waited until the end of this and you went from their 2021 or their 2022 value to whatever the value is on that current year that this changes, they're going to have either a 40 to a 50% increase in that 1 year. So that is a concern as well.
I think it's pretty easy to explain, though. This is why, because we froze it because there was an issue with how the land was parceled out, and it was done wrong. And we said we would step up and fix it, but this is what it is, and I'm sorry, but it's gonna go up. I mean, I don't,
I can always make the letter that we send out to them after these changes are made, make it specifically geared towards them, letting them know that when this change does revert back, that they will see a significant increase in whatever year that is. I mean, that's something that we could add to that letter.
and to me, that makes perfect sense, because I think we're trying to help from our side too, so. Okay, was that, did you make that a motion, Steve, or was I thought I heard the motion.
Yeah, I would make a motion to freeze as of 2022 valuation until,
For,
for 1 year,
for Muddy Valley
for
side.
Muddy Valley subdivision, and, until next year to be reviewed.
Is there a second?
I would second that.
Okay, moving second, any discussion? Roll call.
Barry,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Corey,
Yes,
and Bo.
Okay.
motion carried.
The next person who came up with was Bruce DeWise. I had my girls run a quick sales comp, so they just picked 5 of the most comparable sales rather than the whole thing. And they're ranging from $375 all the way up to $460,000 for as sales prices for last year.
And they're all in the same type of neighborhood?
They're all within the mid-average one-story classification, so.
Well, I think we did tell him you could do an inspection
Right,
before he
right,
make a
and he did
decision on
good.
it. So let's do that and take a look at the neighborhood and see what we need to do, in my opinion.
The motion would be to leave it the same pending homeowner's inspection.
Yeah.
Okay, so move.
Second by me. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Steve,
Yes.
Corey,
Yes,
Barry,
Yes.
and Bo.
Yes.
motion carried.
Our next property is the multiple parcels from JMAC, the old Halliburton complex. So, yeah. There is no statute that says each property has to have a single sale or single deed. There is no statute that says it, but it does make it easier to know what each property is worth in our inspection or our analysis. They talked about the single property sale is their value. Well, we are a mass appraisal. We don't do single property appraisals, otherwise we would be at this for a lot longer of a time than 1 year. We have to pull them all together and apply a median. With their appraisals, we notice that they are done as lease fee. They are not fee simple properties, so they are expecting a lease on these. In fact, Halliburton has leased these properties to continue to operate out of some of these. They also do not say in their scope of work that this is for mass appraisal, but it is for loan underwriting and credit decisions. They also have a section on the income, which we do not use, the income valuation for shop values. And one of their comps is a retail facility, not even a shop. It's a, and not even for the year in question. Their sales approach does not have any 2022 sales. There were many comps that we saw that they did not include in their property. And the other thing is, this was sold as a bundle. So of course you're gonna get a discount when when you buy one soda versus a 12-pack, that cost per can goes down than when you buy one. So if the same principle operates on property sales as well. I believe, do you have anything you want to add? Okay, I didn't know if you're coming up here first. So those are my notes from this, and we can look at each one of them individually. We have all the parcel numbers, so.
Although I'd be happy to address about
You have
the
to
man
touch
camp.
that one.
I'd be happy to address about the man camp and why that valuation did change though, because I know that that is a point that was brought up. The problem is that I have not toured this area in quite some time. Last year I actually did. When I came upon the man camp, I found that it was listed as a very small one-story apartment complex, which is not accurate for multiple reasons. What we ended up doing is to get the cost valuation more in line with what we did the back end where it has all the rooms as a dormitory, because that would not allow for single plumbing in every room, which that I don't believe has. We've never been allowed an access to it. And then we put the front end on hotel, motel, common facilities, which is basically the equivalent of a lobby, a main kitchen, and some excess plumbing to allow for that. So just to get that cost in a little bit, yes, it did increase somehow, some way. They got a fantastic deal for the last 10 years. That it is unfortunate, but we did correct that. And that's why it went up, not for any reason other than that.
Does, when we're valuing a property, do we take into account whether it's usable?
Absolutely. Conditions and that type of thing, jurisdictional control, those will go into consideration. So when I found the errors on this property, I did contact the city of Williston, because if they did not have services hooked up to it, that would absolutely be something I could take into consideration. Unfortunately, in that conversation I found with the city of Williston, they had recently rehooked up the water and the electric, and I was told off the record that they were now going to be using that for office and meeting spaces. But the problem is, once you rehook it back up to utilities, it's a little bit hard for me to say it no longer has a use. It's been sitting there dormant, and now all of a sudden you've added stuff back to it, and every time I come by, there's lights on. I did request an interior inspection and was denied. And so, yes, I did make that effort, because that is something I would love to take into consideration. All the avenues that we approached to try and get that data were blocked for us, though.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I just look back to their, when they give you documentation for the value, and you said that that was rejected. So, explain to me again why it was not so much because the parcels weren't separated out, but as a whole it was rejected.
Okay, you handled the sales.
Sure. So the reason I chose to invalidate that sale was multifold. First off, we have office space, shop space, vacant land, rail facility, and that man camp on 2 deeds. We have to then take that sales price and break it out and apply it to where? Do I apply it to the office space in town? Do I apply it to the warehouses in town? Do I apply it to the vacant lots in town? When we don't have those broken up, we have to make that decision. I can't decide which part was undervalued in that scenario without having it broken out for us on the one hand. On the second hand, when you do buy properties in this bundle process, you are not looking at the average buyer. The average buyer does not go in and buy 23 acres and 20 buildings in one shot. The average buyer buys a lot, a shop, even 5 shops. 20 shops is not typical. So when we are trying to take that cell and reapply it in a mass model, which we don't have any control over the mass model is state mandated. that does not represent a typical sale in our area. Typically, people are not doing that. So one, I don't know exactly where to apply it. And two, does that represent our average market? Is there any way for me to go through and say that one steel shop in Williston on an acre that's sold for $1 million should be equally compared to a sale where they bought 20 steel shops for $6 million? No, I do not feel that that is accurate. And then to top that off, Halliburton is still using some of those properties, which lays into question. I'm not exactly sure what the basis of the sale is. We're not made privy to that, but there is something going on with that that is not a typical sale.
These are all platted out separately, so we have to look at them separately. Yes, you can come in and buy them all like that, all in one junction, but we have to apply that value back and look at them individually and see that as our market, not a 20 parcel sale or 6 parcel sale or however many it was.
So if they would have provided that information individually, they would have been considered, or at least the next step of consideration
Yeah,
for
yeah, it would have gone to the next.
Absolutely. If we had received those as separate deeds and separate things, the reality is we have a lot less leeway in that scenario to be able to consider it. I don't get to just decide what is and isn't valued. I can have suspicions. If they had broken it out, I would not have had any leeway. I would have been required to consider those sales as valid.
So since they've been provided now, is that something that we need to look
Well,
at?
and again, that's something we have to take in consideration. And the same as if a property owner is going to provide their income 2 years later, these were not into consideration. If we were to consider these sale prices broken down now, we'd be doing a disservice to everybody that did provide their sales price and was considered in a raise in that process. So the real problem here isn't so much JMAC and whether or not we are going to be equitable to them. In my opinion, my concern is, are we being equitable to everybody? Our role here is mass appraisal, which means that we have to be equitable on a mass basis, not on an individual basis. The monster in mass appraisal would mean that every process, every time you value properties, you're going to have an equal number underassessed versus overassessed, because technically that median sale is the only one that's right if you want to get real picky. We are matching that median sale and then blanket applying that same factor across the board. That is the monster with mass appraisal. Do you get a more fair, not equitable, but fair valuation when you do single property? Absolutely. But the state does not have us do that on multiple things. First off, not every property sells. I mean, some families are in their home for 30 years. Does that mean that they should not have a discount when their neighbors' prices start going down? Does that mean they should not have an increase when their neighbors' prices start going up? Mass appraisal takes and it bridges that gap to make sure that we can be equitable, not necessarily fair, but equitable across the board.
If we were to consider these sales, we would have to go back and redo all the values of all the steel shops, in the city of Williston. Not that if you told us to do that, we would do it, but I'm just giving you the scope of work, that this is not affecting JMAX by not taking their sales into consideration on their property. Because if we take it into consideration on their property, we need to take it into consideration on all the properties.
Exactly, in order to maintain our model.
I guess, did they ever say why they didn't provide this at a timely fashion, but not until they appealed,
Protest, yeah.
then they, or protested, then they provided it?
So we were not specifically told. So I did have multiple conversations. We've been having conversations with Halliburton every single year for 3 years. And this was a conversation I did have with Halliburton because she wanted to know what they could do to have enough sales to have this represented. I did present a hypothetical situation of if they were to sell all their properties and list each property with an actual sales price, that then we would have enough comparable sales that essentially would make a market. One, I didn't know JMAC was buying until this deed was recorded because that's not something we're typically privy to. But it's just a conversation we did have with Halliburton.
Well, and it makes me kind of, wonder. When we spoke with the gal from Halliburton on the phone, she had made the comment that, well, they're actually kind of creating the market. So when one of these on the JMAC property is the old Halliburton property, but then they sell it to, whoever for a certain price and then turn around and use that sale as justification to get the taxes lowered on their other property. It's a push, right?
Sure.
You probably sold this one chunk just a little too cheap, but now we'll be able to get our tax.
And again, that is speculation. We can speculate all day long, but
it just kind of made me go,
it's definitely curious and interesting. But again, it's speculation. It's not anything we can be for certain about. So the best we can do, we don't know the ins and outs on all business matters. The best we can do is treat everything equally. Absolutely interesting.
when she mentioned that, because she's the one that said that, well, we're actually creating the market, and it's like, well, that it just caught my attention anyway.
So I did provide everybody a sheet that does break out. Basically, we took their estimated valuations, what they felt each of these parcels would be worth. I have subtracted the land valuation and any improvements such as things that are not typical, things like tanks, rail facilities, rail spurs, that type of thing, and then reapplied that price. I might not have given one to Brenda, I will give you one. Reapplied that back to see what an estimated price per square foot would be on each of these buildings. And if you can look, all but one of these properties has a negative price per square foot. So again, just a small piece of information, but when we are talking about being equitable across the basis, nobody's going to get a building for negative pricing. Nobody's paying anybody to take a building off of their hands.
But because there's a deadline for providing information, obviously, so they provided the rest of this information later on. This information would be usable for next year's valuation?
No, unfortunately, typically not, because we do keep in mind, we do our reassessments every year, and it's for the sales for the year prior. So unfortunately, this falls into that kind of gray area or dead area even, because it was not recorded in the time we were making our assessment. So that is actually a reason to exclude a deed also, is a sale that occurred prior to the current year. So if a sale happens and you fail to record your deed until after we've set assessments, there is a way to invalidate that in the state system. The state has us invalidate those based on that. So no, that data is no longer considerable, in the same manner that if somebody were to come back with their late income for their apartments, it's really not considerable, again, unless we were to do it on a mass process where we would go through and reassess everything. We would not typically take that one apartment owner's income and reassess their property, because then, again, that's doing a disservice to the other property owners who have been assessed without that income.
Checking question, say we don't change anything, they're not done, they can still go to the state, right? I mean,
Absolutely. They have met all the requirements to take this to the state if they so choose.
Okay, so is there a motion? I believe it's written right here.
No, we would need one individually for this. Yeah,
Yeah, when we still have a couple more to talk about, so we're not quite done.
yeah, don't read that one yet.
I would make a motion to leave the valuation of those properties the same.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and second, any discussion? Roll call.
Barry,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Corey,
Yes,
and Bo.
Yes.
motion carried.
We can move on to Halliburton, since we'll do the ones that actually spoke first, and then we'll go to the ones that I read off. So we reviewed their information, and we did find some questionable usage of their analysis. On the 36S Avenue, it just went up with all the other commercial steel or metal warehouses, and that was a 32% increase. Metal warehouses in the city limits are very valuable right now. They're a hot commodity. So they did go up 30% over last year. Within their analysis, they just take the the total assessment, which includes land and any yard extras, paving, tanks, whatever, and divide it by just the square footage of the building. So they completely ignore everything else that's on that parcel. There's no consideration for the land or the yard extras. Our assessment is actually $59 a square foot for the building. The comps that she provided, there is no adjustments on there for any differences. And there's only 3 out of the 9 sales that we had. Comp 1 has is half of the land of the original of the Halliburton parcel. That has no yard extras, no paving, no tanks, no lighting, nothing on that one. Number 2 is the new gymnastics building in town. That is a bare bones structure. There is no plumbing, there's no interior walls, it's just the frame and the outdoors and that, or the siding, and that's about it in that one. So there's no adjustments made on that one. There's no adjustments made for its age. It's a much smaller land. It was sold to a nonprofit organization. And comp 3 is Holland Auto Body, which is an auto shop with 2 buildings and very little the land to building ratio is very small. You also have different land rates on all of those parcels compared to the Halliburton one. So she just didn't do any adjustments at all in any of her analyses. On the new complex, she's comparing it to Baker Hughes, and also does not adjust for any of the exterior structures, the difference in land and paving. I mean, the Baker Hughes is one building. The CBRE right now has I know it's a listing and it doesn't bear any weight on our analysis, but they have it listed, the Baker Hughes building listed for more than this property. Their analysis that they provided was an opinion of value, and didn't provide any of the backbone of that analysis, so we couldn't see any of the work done. They state in their analysis that they did not revisit the property between their appraisal in, or their, what was it, in 21? They did a appraisal in 21. using the same value, didn't make any new visit to the property. We do have significant issues with that appraisal that they're basing it on. Their comps are the old Halliburton complex that was a non-usable sale, included multiple parcels or a bulk deal. You're trying to compare 1960s well-used buildings to a 2011 brand-new building. And also made no adjustments to our comps again.
So ultimately, when she makes these comparisons, she takes the overall sales price, divides it by the square footage of the buildings. She doesn't make any adjustments to account for the fact that some of these buildings are storage sheds without even a foundation. And she feels that that square footage equals out to their office space, which doesn't quite mesh exactly like that. And again, that Baker Hughes facility, in my opinion, both of those were distressed sales. They were trying to get out. They sold the one for $7,500,000. It is on the market now by that buyer for $18,500,000. I mean, I don't like to use the dumped sell loosely, but it really feels like they just were trying to get out.
Anybody got any questions? Anybody interested in making a motion?
I would make a motion to leave, to leave as is.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Corey,
Yes.
Bo,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Steve.
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right. So now we have Walmart. Walmart included a Marshall and Swift cost estimator. We don't use Marshall and Swift. They're just another company that does valuation services. We have found, and this is kind of Western statewide, really, anything Bismarck and over, they do not that Marshall and Swift does not reflect our local market. We've seen it in countless analyses that have been brought to us, and when we turn around and say, well, what about, this is what we're seeing, the numbers don't match. They also don't correctly use it. There's a number of adjustments that need to be made for local multipliers, and they do not use them the way that they are supposed to. They also have no consideration for the cost of the interior of the building, so any of the drywall, the flooring, the building, the bathroom stalls, none of that is, the coolers, none of that is in consideration in their analysis. They think that there is no salvage value to the concrete, that it just gets, at the end of its life, it'll be gravel. As it sits, like it should be looking like gravel halfways right now. They use, the sales that they use is a supermarket in Bismarck built in '88, a furniture store in Fargo, another retail store in Fargo, the Minot Kmart store, Jamestown Shopping Center, and a department store in Devil's Lake, with no adjustments for location, age, condition, and all their sales are between 19 and 22. So we can only look at the 22 sales, but yet they're saying we should use 2019 sales on theirs.
Any questions about the Walmart protest?
I'd make a motion to leave the value as presented.
I'll second that. Any discussion? Roll call.
Bo,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
and Corey.
Yes. Motion carried.
Okay, the last one we have is Craig Hoagland's, or Hogland, sorry. We have inspected it, we have made changes to what we have found. I mean, it is a fairly large house. It had a addition put on in 12, I believe. This is just up the street that way. Used to be Wolds. Can't remember, but I mean, it's a 2,000 square foot house built in 1920 with some adjustments made for its age. So
Is that Mike Mealis's old house?
at the city meeting, he leaned heavily on his appraisal for refinance. Their appraisal allows for no value for any attic or basement, even if the foundation, like they say, oh, your basement's unfinished, well, then you have no basement. So there's some differences in how they come up with the value and how we need to come up with the value.
When was the last time you inspected it?
It was April. Yeah, at his request.
Okay.
And then we took the changes to the city. Yeah, yep. Yeah, a very detailed, deep inspection on the, as you can see from the pictures.
What are the wishes?
And you said he was at the city, what did the cities?
So we adjusted it down, do you remember what it was before?
Unfortunately, I do not. We could probably look online and I can tell you what it was.
No, it would have, oh, you mean the cards online? Yeah.
Give me 1 moment, I can actually look.
Unless she put it in her notes. Do you want to look in her note, Shauna? Did you open notes? Well, I guess it would be in the city. Yeah. Let's change its correction. It should. Yeah.
Is there a motion, you need a motion to accept the value that it was changed to at the?
Well, he wants it lower than what we changed it to. So it was at 507, 460, and we lowered it down to 438, 110. And he thinks it should be even lower than that. So technically, the value has been adjusted down already. So you wouldn't be saying to ratify the city's value. You're just saying, you would say no change from this, or to change it, or what have you.
I would make a motion to no change, leave the value as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call.
Steve,
Yes.
Corey,
Yes.
Bo,
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right. And that ends our protests.
Already?
So if I, yeah. I mean, we could, so if I could have somebody do the motion and finding on page 2, we can, the formal protests for all townships and cities, there's a, after,
Don't we do page 1?
well, there were no protests, so you don't need to say. I'm trying to make it easy on you guys.
Or you want the motion or the finding?
Both.
I move that a finding be made that a protest items listed above as noted in the minutes being reviewed by the Williams County Board of Equalization. I move that the 2023 true and full values of protests listed above as noted in the minutes and adjusted as recommended.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Corey,
Yes.
Bo,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Steve.
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, pages 3 through 14 are the corrections that we have found between the local board meetings and today. So if you want to review them, I just need the finding and motion on page 14.
I move that a finding be made that the correction items number 1 through 78 listed above as noted in the minutes have been reviewed by the Williams County Board of Equalization. And I move that the 2023 true and full values of correction items number 1 through 78 listed above as noted in the minutes be adjusted as recommended.
Second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Bo,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Corey.
Yes.
Okay, the next page is all the farm residence exemptions that did not complete their paperwork and therefore do not qualify for farm residence exemption. These are putting them back on the tax roll, this action.
I move a finding be made that the correction items 1 through 7 above, listed above as noted in the minutes, have been reviewed by the Williams County Board of Equalization. I move that the 2023 true and full values of the correction items 1 through 7, listed above as noted in the minutes, be adjusted as recommended.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Barry,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Corey,
Yes.
Bo.
Yes.
And it just, so the ag exempt guys, I mean, we've had them in here in the past and then they come and, you know, is there a timeline to where they get, you know, I mean, if they drag their feet too long, it's out of reach or?
And there isn't, yeah, no, I mean, we have the timelines where they have to have their application in by February 1st. Their income has to be received by March 31st. Those are really the only deadlines, and there's no, it's not like, hey, you miss it, this is not, you can't abate it. So, I know that there's some other exemptions out there that actually do say that they can't if you miss your timeline, but no, there isn't. So, we may or may not see these guys in a year. I mean, but our list is going down. People are getting their, we only have 7. So, all right, moving on. We have our homestead credit. This year, right after we get done with all our local equalizations where they all approved their homestead credits, they decided to change the income and percentage of qualification. So we have our real property applicants out in the county listed for you. We have our manufactured homes, the homes on permit listed, and we also have the city of Williston applicants for your guys' approval as well. just because they need to be approved and the city board couldn't approve them at their meeting because so much changed now. Instead of being 5 levels, there are 2. So a lot of people who didn't qualify before now could qualify for 50%. A lot of people who had 80% now are getting 100. So there was a lot of change, a lot of recalculating for these. So
Just need the finding.
yep, just the finding.
I move that a finding be made that all homestead credit applications have been reviewed by the Williams County Board of Equalization and find them proper as presented or corrected as noted in the minutes.
Second.
I
We don't need a second
no,
on
that's
that.
Not on that one. Next page is disabled veterans credit. They did not change anything, so these are just the county numbers. Both this and the homestead credit, of course, are money given back from the state to our jurisdiction, so it's not like lost money.
I move that a finding be made that all disabled veterans' credit applications have been reviewed by Williams County Board of Equalization and find them proper as presented or corrected as noted in the minutes.
Okay, and they are available. I forgot to mention that all these applications are available for your review, should you ask for them today. The next page is a breakout of our privileged exemptions with the exemptions that are described by North Dakota Century Code and what their share is.
I move that a finding be made that all privileged exemption applications have been reviewed by the Williams County Board of Equalization and find them proper as presented or corrected as noted in the minutes.
Okay. Next, we have the farm residence exemptions. This year, we approved 351 farm residence exemptions. So,
I move that a finding be made that the farm resident exemption for Williams County have been reviewed by the Williams County Board of Equalization and find them proper as presented or corrected as noted in the minutes. I move that the Williams County Board of Equalization instruct the Williams County Tax Equalization Office to verify that all farm residents located within Williams County either have a signed exemption form on file or have an assessment of record.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Corey,
Yes.
Bo,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Steve.
Yes.
the next page is just a little bit of transparency. These are just the properties owned by the employees of the Williams County Assessor's Office. Nothing, no motion, just show that we're not getting a decrease while everyone else is getting 40%. So we just have our findings and our motions left.
I think it starts with you, Bo.
I move that a finding be made that the commercial, residential, and agricultural property assessments in Williams County is equalized by the local boards of equalization and the Williams County Board of Equalization meet North Dakota statutes and guidelines of the State Board of Equalization as shown by the commercial ratio study and the adjustment worksheet.
I move that a finding be made that the commercial and residential property assessments within the city of Williston as equalized by the local Board of Equalization meet North Dakota statutes and guidelines of the State Board of Equalization as shown by the commercial ratio study and adjustment worksheet.
I move that a finding be made that the assessment rules, statistical data, spot inspections, mobile home ratio study, and local Board of Equalization minutes have been reviewed by the Williams County Board of Equalization and find them proper as presented or corrected as noted in the minutes.
I move that a finding be made that the supplementary abstract of assessments and a game and fish abstract and the abstract of the Board of University and School Lands have been reviewed by the Williams County Board of Equalization and find them proper as presented or corrected as noted in the minutes.
I move that a finding be made that the protests and corrections and changes noted in the minutes have been reviewed by the Williams County Board of Equalization.
I move that a finding be made that the overall assessment rolls for 2023 for Cow Creek Township Golden Valley Township, Hoffland Township, Nesson Valley Township, New Home Township, and Wheelock City unorganized have been reviewed and find them proper as assessed or corrected as noted in the minutes by the Williams County Board of Equalization sitting as a local Board of Equalization.
Okay, I move that the Williams County Board of Equalization, sitting as the local Board of Equalization, declare the assessment rolls for the 2023 for Nesson Valley Township, Hoffland Township, New Hope Township, Wheelock City unorganized, Cow Creek Township, and Golden Valley Township equalized as assessed or corrected as noted in the minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Bo,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Corey.
Yes, motion carried. I move the changes be made as noted.
Second.
Any discussion? That's not discussion. Roll call.
Barry,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Corey,
Yes,
Bo.
Yes.
motion carried. And by the way, I set the entire meeting up, so I got that one. Not a lot of benefit from the chair.
Right.
Go ahead, Bo.
I move based on the preceding findings and thorough review of the assessment rolls and statistical reports of Williams County Board of Equals, the Williams County assessments for 2023 equalized as assessed or corrected as noted in the minutes.
Second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Steve,
Yes.
Corey,
Yes.
Bo,
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
And now we just need to set next year's date.
I can't wait.
I know.
Good luck.
Right?
Have you got a proposed date?
We can, the 4th, which is the first Tuesday at 10 o'clock. I mean, if this worked for everybody,
Well, it did for almost everybody.
almost I mean, a quorum, so.
Okay, so can we get a motion to that effect?
So move for June 4th, 2024.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call.
Corey,
Yes.
Bo,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Steve.
Yes.
Motion carried. Meeting's adjourned.